All right, welcome in to the Big Hitters Only podcast. This should be in your feed on Wednesday morning. You might be listening to on Thursday or Friday or even Saturday. This is kind of the preview podcast for this week ahead of UNC's game versus Charlotte on Saturday in Kenan Stadium. Kind of wanted to set up the show for you. First of all, we have Josh Graham on. He is a radio host, a local sports talk radio host in the Triad, so Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point. He covers the ACC, goes to games, covers the Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, Duke, Wake, NC State, and UNC. Pretty locked in to both football and basketball. I wanted to bring him on because of how the ACC football has started the 2024 season. So Clemson's beatdown loss at the hands of Georgia, and then Florida State now starting 0-2 with losses to Georgia Tech in Ireland and Boston College on Monday night. Kind of got dominated by Boston College, and then Virginia Tech losing at Vanderbilt. And it's kind of the perception of the ACC football right now in 2024. So much going on with the ACC and how it's perceived nationally versus the SEC versus the Big 12 and the Big 10. So we get on that. Josh Graham is an interesting character, super energetic, super electric, and very engaging on Twitter and on his radio show. And so it's a fun interview, and you'll surely see Josh's personality on that one. Make sure you share that with anyone interested in kind of ACC stuff, Clemson, Florida State, and and the ACC conference from a national perspective. Second interview is with Dre Bly. Of course, Dre Bly is a All-American, Hall of Fame, former UNC cornerback who coached at UNC under Mac Brown from 2019 to 2022. He spent a 23 season with the Detroit Lions and now is on the staff at Charlotte under Biff Poggi down there in Charlotte. And they come to Kenan Stadium on Saturday. So kind of a return, a homecoming for Dre Bly. A friend of mine who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. We always interacted in Chapel Hill. A great guy. I wanted to get him on, just kind of reconnect, see where he is with his career, how it's going in Charlotte, and it serves as somewhat of a preview of kind of that matchup. Not that we get into any X and O's or anything, but he's on the defensive staff there, along with Tim Brewster and a bunch of other UNC coaches and former players like Tim Cross, for example, is on the staff as well. So an engaging interview with Dre Bly. He called me after the interview, and we talked on the phone for about 30 minutes. So that was the off-the-record stuff that, of course, will not be on the podcast, but a good catch-up with Dre Bly. He's entertaining. Funny enough, Graham and Bly could not be more different, but they're both very engaging and very entertaining talkers. So this is a big talking episode where I kind of take a seat back and let those two guys talk to me and kind of serve as an interview there. I need y'all's help to spread the word on this podcast. We're doing a lot of good content now. We had Dre Bly on. We have tons of good media people on. We had Scott Weatherby, the Eastern Michigan athletic director, on yesterday. I need you to tell your friends about this podcast. If anybody is into the ACC, into UNC in particular, into North Carolina, tell them to go to Spotify, to Apple, to search Big Hitters Only, and subscribe or follow to this podcast. Rate it, review it, engage with it on social media, have them tell their friends. We need to grow this. That's kind of the point now. We're in week 2. I need to see some kind of the numbers and see where we're going and get this thing rocking and rolling. I wanted to start building it first, and then from there, start publicizing it, start marketing it more. So we're at that point now where we're getting a lot of good content and a lot of effort going in. So I want people to start listening to it, start engaging, rate, review, subscribe, where you get your podcast, and tell your friends. That's the best way. I was kind of reading some podcast stuff on Reddit, and the best way is just word of mouth. People will recommend the podcast, and then they'll get their friends to listen to that. Again, I want to publicize the Eastern Michigan athletic director interview from Tuesday's show with Scott Weatherby. Whether or not you're interested in Eastern Michigan or in MAC football or a non-kind of group of 5, non-power 5, non-group of 4 football, the Scott Weatherby interview is different. It's engaging. It's interesting insight into how you run an athletic department at a program like Eastern Michigan, which I think many of y'all probably never heard of. I worked there for like 6 to 8 months last football season and into the basketball season from 2023, 2024. I worked in the office there with Scott, with sponsorship sales, with the SIDs, with the marketing department closely, and got a good glimpse on the other side of college athletics. And I think you'll have a very interesting insight, plus more perspective on how athletic departments are run and the struggles and the challenges that programs that aren't Power 4, aren't SEC, aren't ACC, how they operate and the struggles they face every day, every week to kind of get fan support, to market themselves, to grow, to build, to fundraise. It's definitely a different monster in the MAC, but certainly a rewarding one. And it was awesome that Scott took an hour out of his day, a sitting AD, to come on our podcast. He was my first interview. It was a little awkward. We were kind of really close to each other. I was still figuring out the tech, so I was like hoping the tech would work. And then the video component was different, and we didn't have the best setup. But I thought overall went smoothly. So make sure you check out that interview with Scott Weatherby. Schedule-wise, the Dre Bly interview and the Josh Graham interview will be the last interview and podcast for this week. We'll do a reaction pod following the Charlotte game. That will probably be Sunday morning, if not Sunday afternoon. So that'll be in your feeds on Monday. First thing Monday will be the reaction podcast of UNC's game versus Charlotte. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Remember, rate, review, subscribe, follow on Spotify, hit the like button on YouTube, hit all three. We need as much those numbers to jump up and get this thing rolling. Tell your friends about Big Hitters Only podcast. If you like this content, obviously free content, free videos, free stuff for your runs, your drives, then we need to keep it going and kind of start gaining momentum as we get into football season and then get it really cooking here in basketball season. Enjoy his podcast, enjoy his show, and I will talk to you next time. Welcome in to the Big Hitters Only podcast, the midweek show. Getting a little different here. We had Rod on Tuesday morning with the interview with Eastern Michigan Athletic Director Scott Weatherby. So make sure to check out that interview. A glimpse into being a MAC football program, leading an athletic department, and also about 15 minutes with Rod Baxley on the UNC press conferences. But now for the midweek show, we're bringing on for his first appearance, Josh Graham. Josh, give us a little introduction of where we can find you, where we can listen to you, all your links and Twitter and whatnot.
I'm not kidding. I just moved into a new house, and there is a clock that just got installed that apparently plays music at the top of the hour. So it'll stop in about 30 seconds, I've learned. But I am on WSJS. I do afternoon drive in the Triad. We are the longest running daily sports talk show in the history of the Triad. We're proud of that. And we cover all things ACC, the Carolina Panthers, the Hurricanes when they're good, the Hornets when they're good, and a little bit of golf as well. So whatever lane you want to travel in, Ross Martin, I'm here for it.
Josh is a take master on Twitter. Good follow on Twitter. He likes to stir things up, likes to mix it up. I mean, I appreciate that because that's kind of people have lost that on Twitter. But everybody tries to be, PC and polite and not rile people up. And Josh does a good job of creating conversation. No matter how bad his takes or predictions are, he does make them, which, you got to give him credit for that. He puts himself out there. So I want to talk ACC. I didn't watch all the games. I'm sure you checked out most of them. So I just want to go through, because you're a big ACC defender, right? Your tweets are kind of like, all right, SEC, the odds and losses, Big 10, Big 12, but the ACC, not coming off that Florida State loss last night, maybe not as good, but you're an ACC defender for football, so I want you to kind of start from the beginning. Let's go back to week 0, Florida State, Georgia Tech. And actually, just give us your takes of where the ACC is right now, and then we'll get into some of your tweets I want to read. Like, right now, where do you think ACC football is after week 1, following what happened in week 0 and week 1 with Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Duke, State, etc.?
Where the ACC's at, Ross, is at a place where they're not as good as the SEC is because nobody is, but they're not as bad as where perception seems to be. Like, there seems to be this really cool, this really popular party in the Big 12 where it's this trendy thing, it's new, and look at Brett Yormark. This guy's selling the league, and oh my gosh, he might add UConn, and the basketball's good, and look at these buildings and all that. But then you really start to dive into the details. And this is something I appreciated from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips during ACC Media Day. He started providing, facts and actual figures. He might be the first ACC commissioner to actually bring revenue figures that we didn't have to dig out, that he said, this is what we made this year. This is where it ranks. This is what we do. We're one of the three networks that have, or we're one of the two conferences now, or make it three, that have their own standalone network. And there just seems to be all this dismissiveness towards the conference when they have schools within it that could win a national championship. Clemson isn't the part this year. We saw it against Georgia. Florida State for sure isn't that. But these are programs that have the resources to win national championships. Florida State, unbeaten, should have made the playoff last year. 10 years ago, they did win a championship with Jameis Winston. Clemson's won a couple of national titles. Miami, great start for them at Florida with Cam Ward looking like a Heisman Trophy hopeful. They have the resources to be a national championship contender. The Big 12 Conference doesn't have one team that could win a national championship. We're talking about capability here. I like Utah. I like Oklahoma State. But none of those teams are capable of winning a national championship, yet they still get equal amounts and maybe in some cases more praise than the ACC. So you can call it ACC defense. What I say is, why does this conference get hit over the head with a club when they lose a head-to-head ACC-SEC matchup like they lost with Vanderbilt beating Virginia Tech, but then nobody seems to say diddly when the SEC loses not one, not two, but three national window games on network television, going 1-3 in those, and two of them including home losses by double-digit points. Nobody can bring that up. So that, you call it ACC defense, I call it somebody that's trying to add perspective and be fair towards everybody.
You said, wait, is that Big 12 or Big SEC that went 1-3 at home?
It was, no, not at home. It was 1-3 in network TV standalone games. So noon, Georgia breaks off Clemson. But then
Gotcha.
Miami
SEC
blows out Florida, and then Texas A&M loses at home to Notre Dame, and then Sunday night it was LSU blowing a lead against USC.
Yeah, I think it's the LSU tweets that grabbed my attention, Josh. All right, so push back here, Clemson and Florida State, who I know you bring up a lot about them suing the conference, they obviously started out 0-3. I mean, Florida State, it seems like 0-2 in the conference already, and their season may be done. Clemson, you got to give them a little slack because they are going against Georgia. I think Georgia would beat most teams outside of maybe the top 5 by 30 at this point. So what do you say if someone pushes back and say, all right, Clemson and Florida State are your top football teams, the top recruiting teams, the ones that are in the top 15 of the AP rankings, and they went 0-3, and Florida State is embarrassing themselves against kind of mid-level to lower-level ACC teams like Georgia Tech and Boston College.
Yeah. That's but the framing of Clemson's loss is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of, I'll give a good example, Paul Feinbaum, because he gets a lot of attention. LSU loses. Okay, they blow a lead. It's the 5th straight year they've opened the season with a loss 3 times under Brian Kelly. He says it's a crushing loss. But you look at LSU's schedule, there's nobody else they can't beat on it. Then they get to Clemson. And it's like, well, Dabo's done. Clemson's done. It's all over. It's terrible. He didn't go into the portal and again, and that's why everything's bad. Now, it might be true that he should have gone in the portal. It might have been true, and it might cost Clemson. It might be Groundhog Day all over again. However, to the point that you bring up about the Georgia piece, what transfer class could Clemson have brought in that would have had them hang in that game? They could have brought in Miami's recruiting. They could have brought in Cam Ward, Ole Miss, and Louisville's recruiting class or transfer class together, and they're still going to lose that football game. So while the point might be so, and we'll see how it plays out, if they lose to App State, for example, this weekend in their home opener and they start 0-2, then that might be an apt point. Opening up last year with a loss at Duke by 3 touchdowns, that's an apt point. You should have a lot more talent. But the fact that they jumped there this early on Clemson shows that there are opportunists out there that have an agenda to knock down this league, or at least be more aggressive, be more willing to be aggressive towards that conference than some others, more specifically the SEC.
It's like you're trying to fight the media narrative, essentially, right?
One more time?
You're trying to fight the media narrative. That's kind of what you're trying to fight, the national media narrative.
It's frustrating because I think people are becoming more in tune with it, because you see it and it's like, all right, every single time Feinbaum comes on the show, can you name a team ranked in the top 10 that you think's overrated in the preseason poll? And he lists 2, and there are 6 SEC teams in the top 10, but no, we're going to point to the 2 teams that are not, including Penn State. We're going to crush James Franklin, and then we're going to crush Harbaugh, and then we're going to crush Dabo. But it's never by the same logic, Brian Kelly. It's never by the same logic, Lane Kiffin. It's always non-SEC properties, and it makes sense when you consider there is that partnership there with ESPN and the SEC network. But what makes it interesting is the ACC has a similar deal. They just don't have any of their talent, and this is something that Dabo Swinney's talked about. Mark Packer talked about it publicly on my show. How often do you see ACC network talent on the mothership, on Get Up? How often do you see EJ Manuel there? How often do you see Eric McClain or Mark Packer? That's the piece where it's like, that's a little bit interesting how the ESPN has 2 standalone networks, but we only seem to see talent from one of them. Why do I see a lot of Laura Rutledge, Jordan Rogers, and Paul Feinbaum on ESPN, but I don't see any of those guys from the ACC? That's interesting.
Well, I think that's the issue the ACC faces, is that SEC is just a much bigger operation. The schools are bigger. They graduate more people. People are more invested. You don't have a lot of Boston College and Georgia Tech fans listening to the ACC network. They're, in Atlanta and in Boston, it's more of a pro sports town, whereas in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Baton Rouge, and Missouri, even places like, in Mississippi, like it's all locked into the SEC teams, and that's what the ACC faces. The fan bases aren't the same size. They don't have the same graduation rates. There's not as much locked-inness into football. It's more spread out. It's just smaller, and that's the issue.
Be honest with what it is. Smaller. That's it. Like, you look at the private school count in the ACC and how small they are. That is a factor. And at least with the SEC, Ross, they have enough productivity in football where they can say, they deserve special attention. They deserve an extra playoff spot, an extra automatic bid, and a 14-team playoff that seems to be coming. When it gets really frustrating is when it's the Big Ten conference that's saying, you know what, big power 2, we deserve the same treatment that the SEC gets. Why? Because we have more money and we have bigger schools with bigger alumni bases, which means more people watch our games. But yet you haven't won a basketball title since 2000, and you've won 2 football championships in the last 10 years. But the ACC is right on par with that. You look at what you saw this past weekend. The Big Ten played nobody except North Carolina going to Minnesota and winning the game. West Virginia, Penn State beat West Virginia, but look at the rest. Oregon struggled against Idaho. Michigan was in a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter against Fresno State. Like, all these Michigan State struggled against FAU. Like, the Big Ten, that's the piece that's really frustrating, because when you start asking the questions why that conference deserves more AQs than the ACC, the reasons aren't great. At least the SEC, you could say, more money, more prestige, more success in football, we've earned it. The Big Ten doesn't have those grounds, yet it seems they're going to get it, and that is something I have an issue with.
I think the middle teams in the Big Ten, I think the Big Ten's a very top-heavy league. You got Michigan, Ohio State, and then maybe Penn State. But outside of that, Iowa, it just doesn't move the meter very much. But you think about Indiana, Nebraska, they're big schools, Minnesota, Maryland, Rutgers. Those are, in terms of football, they're not really there. Nebraska maybe can move the meter this year, but I was just thinking about Minnesota when UNC played them. What a random school. That school isn't nationally relevant ever in football. Just like the middle of the ACC. That's why the ACC has to have Clemson and Florida State be well. And Miami, like you mentioned earlier at the top there, Miami has a chance with Cam Ward to really make waves and be a college football playoff contender. You know, the darling was kind of Virginia Tech. You were at ACC Media Days. I was not there. Virginia Tech was this hot team.
Yeah.
But then you go and lose to the worst team in the SEC on the road in Nashville. That's not a good look for the conference as well. So now it's like, all right, what team's going to carry the banner for the ACC? It's going to have to be Miami now. And then you hope for what? Could it be State? Could it, you know, I don't know if UNC really has the schedule or the chops late in the season to get it done. So it's kind of like it has to be now Miami, maybe State, Louisville. It's just kind of slim pickings once you get to that point, whereas the the SEC and the Big Ten have a couple other teams in the running still. That's where I think there's just not – the hope was Virginia Tech and Miami were dominant. They've just not carried their weight the last 10, 15 years. They've fallen behind, and the hope was Miami and Virginia Tech would get there. They just haven't been there consistently over the last 10 years.
Ross, you asked for takes. I'm going to give you a take. Like, I have my ACC cap on right now. I might as well have like a 10 cap here for what my biggest concern for the ACC is. It suddenly just got really dark in here. But
yeah, it got dark in there.
But anyway,
cloud coverage.
It did. There was a lot of light for a second ago. Now there isn't. But my biggest concern for the ACC, and I brought this up to the commissioner last week when he was on the show, but he didn't really play ball with it. I understand why, because it's about agendas. But my concern is like that the games really don't matter as much as they should. And what I mean by that is we heard all this same talk last year, Ross, of like the ACC needs to win these big non-conference matchups. That's what they need to do, and that's going to get them where they need to go. And then the first weekend of the year, FSU beats the brakes off of LSU by 3 touchdowns. And the ACC has a winning record against the Big Ten and the SEC, yet the ACC's unbeaten conference champion gets left out in favor of a one-loss SEC team. That's how does that happen? And then what's funny about it is part of the logic with it was, hey, that was the beginning of the year. Florida State, that LSU team wasn't even that impressive after all. But then 2 or 3 days after Florida State gets left out, because that LSU win, it doesn't mean much of anything. LSU wasn't all that good. The same apparatus that pushed for Alabama to be into the playoff then said, you know what? Jaden Daniels needs to win the Heisman Trophy because look how good he made LSU. Like, come on, like Jaden Daniels. So wait a minute. They're not good enough for that win to matter for Florida State, but they're good enough that you need to give their quarterback the Heisman Trophy, even though Michael Penix had better numbers. That part doesn't make a lot of sense either, but it speaks to this. Like, thank goodness for automatic qualifiers this year with a 12-team playoff, but if it's close, do you have any faith that based on the metrics or resume, that ACC teams are going to get any favor over a Big Ten or an SEC team? Because I don't.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to open this Miami. I'll be right back.
Yeah, something's going through lighting. Josh is going to fix his lighting here. We're talking to Josh Graham, bringing the electric takes. We're recording on Tuesday, September 3rd, right around 10 o'clock. Listen to Josh on the Drive Daily Sports Talk Show in the Triad covering the ACC, the Panthers. Josh goes to games.
And then there was light.
He watches ball. Let me check it out. I was reading your bio here. Yeah, there he is with his Orioles gear.
Oh, sorry. So
listen to Josh on his. You can stream his show. You can listen to it live on the radio as well, and I'm sure you can get the podcast. All right, Josh. So ACC let's get off this ACC versus the Big Ten versus the SEC stuff. Let's just talk ACC ball. Who do you like? Who do you like in the in North Carolina? You got Duke. You got Carolina. You got State. You got a big matchup with State and Tennessee in Charlotte. I'll be at that game. You got Wake Forest taking on Virginia, which is a good early season conference matchup. I think that's in Winston, right? Yep. So who do you like in North Carolina? What teams do you like? What did you see in the first week that kind of caught your eye about the 4 teams that we really care about here in North Carolina?
I'm not writing off NC State after 1 week. I'm not doing it. Week 1 is weird, and I think it's very important to note what you did, that Tennessee is in week 2. And I think across college football, especially if you have a big week 2 and you don't play a great team in week 1. And by the way, Western Carolina, top 25 team in the FCS. So I get it, it's FCS, but they're one of the better FCS programs. It was clear NC State was saving a lot of things for Tennessee and didn't want to show a lot of things on tape for them. So much so that App State coach Sean Clark was on my show yesterday, and he said he had a lot of stuff saved for Clemson this week. It's usually a movie night in the Clark household on Thursday nights. He turned on the NC State Western game and saw how it was going for the first three quarters. And he started calling his coaches and saying, no, we're not saving anything. We're going to do whatever it takes to beat East Tennessee State because coaches get anxious. And what he saw was a team that probably was saving things for Tennessee, and it nearly cost them against Western. So my prediction is you're going to see a lot better NC State team against Tennessee. Does that mean they win the game? We'll see. It was a 4-point spread that sounded about right. It's now inflated to about 7.5. We'll see if it gets even larger than that. Now that betting's legal in North Carolina, you could maybe take advantage if you want to. I think that's going to be a great game. Still haven't quite figured out the pronunciation for Tennessee's quarterback. Iamala Liava, I think is how it's pronounced. And Iamala Liava had a great game last week against Austin Peay, but it's Austin Peay. So that is the marquee game, and I still have it written off NC State. And I think they can answer your question pretty firmly of who's the best team in the state of North Carolina with a good showing on Saturday. And it sounds like I'll see you there.
In Charlotte?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be there. I don't know if I'll make it to the press box. I have a press pass, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it to the press box.
Oh, okay.
Got a little bit different job title this year, so I'm still going to games, but I hope to make an appearance. I know Rod will be there. So you're not going to Wake, Virginia?
I will not be, even though my wife is a Virginia grad, and we will not be at Virginia Wake. I saw Wake last week. I try to make the rounds to see everybody. We'll be at App State in a couple of weeks. Next week, after this week, who am I going to go see? I actually will be back at Wake. So I didn't want to go see Wake 3 straight weeks. Ole Miss, top 10 team in the country, is going to Winston-Salem next week. So I'll be at that game.
Cool. I'm pulling up some spreads now. I wanted to go to that game, but I'll be out of town. I'm pulling up some spreads now. I want you to make
let's go.
How about Duke at Northwestern? Northwestern right now is favored by 2.5. What would you pick in that game?
Probably Northwestern, just because where the game's at. It's at Northwestern, and I probably give them the lean. I started looking at – it's funny you do this. I started looking at the lines late last night. I'm a night owl, so it was about 12, 12:30. Fire it up. I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, 17.5 for App State at Clemson. I just saw the 17 number that Boston College had against FSU. I'm going to fire one off on the Mountaineers. Yeah, so I fired one off on the Mountaineers, and I'm just waiting to get the best number for State because I believe money's about to come in heavy still in Tennessee. I think that number's still on the climb, so that's one I'm keeping an eye on too.
Yeah, we're gonna go through them all here. You jumped the gun in there. All right, so you're picking Northwestern minus 2.5. Wake is hosting Virginia.
Yeah.
Wake is favored by 2.
Ooh, is death an option? Wake, I'd probably lay the points with Wake. That's a whoo.
You're picking.
Yeah, that football game. It seems like a game that somebody's going to win by about 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, and I don't know who. And it's going to be weird. And you're going to be like, what? What just Anthony Clarandria put up how many yards? Really? That happened? Who's starting for Wake? Bachmeier? Bachmeier's putting up 300 yards. Like, you're going to look at the stat line and be like, that happened? I guess I'll lean home team again.
Okay, so you're going Wake minus 2.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. UNC hosting Charlotte. UNC is favored by 22.5 points. Dre Bly returns to Chapel Hill. We're having Dre Bly on after this interview with Josh, so stay tuned for Dre Bly if he answers my phone call. Have not interviewed him yet. We're hoping to have Dre Bly on, so if he doesn't come on, that's on him. But we're talking to Dre after this to kind of preview the Charlotte UNC game. Josh, who do you have in that game with the spread there?
Do you have the total? Do you have the total there too for UNC and Charlotte?
Yeah.
Just curious what that might be, the over under. Because my first thought would be
48 points.
If that's under, there's your play under 48.5. Because North Carolina obviously is breaking in Connor Harrell. It seemed pretty clear that Max Johnson was their guy, considering how Max stuck with him after halftime and a subpar first half. So that's a problem. Charlotte's not good. Biff Pogie's in trouble, and that team can't score. And North Carolina's defense was really good last week. So I think the under there, like, because I could see it being like a 31-3. I could see it being like a 31-10 type of deal, and all of that still says low.
Okay, good call. And then let's go NC State versus Tennessee in the Duke's Mayo Bowl Classic. Tennessee still 7.5. I bet Tennessee on Monday. I would keep betting Tennessee. I think that offense in Knoxville will run NC State out. But what do you think on there? Are you still going with Tennessee, or you wait until it gets a little bigger?
I think I'd feel better if it gets to 8.5, but I probably would take NC State. I think really, like, if you're in on this team the entire offseason and you liked what they were towards the end of the year and you liked the transfers that they added, and I do, and Kevin Concepcion, he showed out in the first game against Western. There's some concerns about some of the blocking up front that didn't open up holes for Jordan Waters. I think NC State is going to have a better showing. This is where I ask again what the total is, because I think NC State's going to score. And I think Tennessee's going to score, to your point, with their offense. So if that number is 55-ish, like 55.5, that might even be too high. 52.5-ish. Like, I could see this being a shootout where the winning team scores 30 and both teams score 20. Like, that's the type of game. So I'd look at the over.
The over-under is 60.5.
So Vegas has that sense too. So that's a good line. I'd probably play State just because I think it's going to be a closer game. But Ross, you've covered recruiting for a long time. It does seem like to me that Tennessee, like, we've seen what Clemson's blueprint was when they won their championships, and a lot of it was pulling talent from North Carolina. And it's been a story for about 25 years, maybe even longer, that North Carolina schools struggle to keep in-state talent here, away from SEC teams, away from schools like Clemson or Virginia Tech. It seems that Tennessee has a big part of their turnaround as they return back to the state of North Carolina to play in Charlotte on Sunday or on Saturday, has been recruiting the state of North Carolina. Hendon Hooker, your guy from Greensboro, he was a big part of this. They have the top recruit for this next year from North Carolina in 25. They have the number one player in the country from your alma mater, Faison Brandon, that is signed to go to Clemson as well. And their best player this year, Pierce, the pass rusher, he's from Charlotte as well. Doesn't it seem like to you that a big part of Tennessee's strategy has been the state of North Carolina with their turnaround?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee's about to start rolling. And I think they have the right offensive, right head coach who has a great offense. It's fun. They can recruit. They can recruit anywhere. They can recruit all across the South, including North Carolina. North Carolina's a better high school football state than Tennessee, but they can go nationally as well. I believe that the Nico guy, the current quarterback, is a national recruit, 5-star stud. So they're a big-time program, and if you go to a game there, I think you've been to a game there. I went to a game there last year.
Yep.
It is a different experience, and the only experience that rivals it is maybe Florida State and Clemson. But if you're between Carolina and NC State, Wake, Duke, like, Tennessee is a different football experience. The whole state comes around. The stadium's massive. The whole city is orange. And they're bringing NIL money. They're probably doing a lot of sketchy stuff as well. Pretty much everything's legal, so who cares? And they got the best quarterback in the state for 2020, or best quarterback in the nation in 2026. Like you said, the offensive tackle out of Charlotte. So they're rolling. I think they're going to get rolling here. But you have to compete with Georgia, to compete with Alabama. I mean, it's a big time SEC program. Yes.
And don't forget this, Ross. It's a big what if that happened last decade here locally, given how things played out in the future. But remember, when they fired Butch Jones and in 2017 wanted to replace him with Greg Schiano, only to have the fan base react nuclearly and have the Phil Fulmer kind of try to manipulate things as well, and they rescinded the offer from Schiano. The AD at the time that was doing that was a first-year AD named John Curry, who's now Wake Forest AD, and to try to salvage his job before ultimately he wasn't allowed to pick the next coach, the name that he called to try to hire at Tennessee after he wasn't allowed to hire Schiano was Dave Doran at NC State.
Yep.
And Dave used that as a means to get a pay bump from the Wolfpack. But just imagine for a moment, now that these two teams are facing each other on Saturday, how much different the landscape in North Carolina looks like if Dave Doran accepts that job. Is John Curry at Wake Forest? Does he ever go back to his alma mater, or is he still at Tennessee? And is he able to hire Steve Forbes, which is turning around the Wake basketball program? Is Dave Doran, does he have success at Tennessee? Who does NC State hire after Dave Doran if that were to happen? And what happens with the Vols ultimately, since now they're a national power? Do they return to that level of prominence? We'll never know the answers to that, but that's a fun what if to consider with the Pack facing the Volunteers coming up this weekend.
A lot of what ifs there from Josh, and I'll add this. Your boy Clay Travis led that Greg Schiano revolt. I know you're a big Clay Travis guy on Twitter, probably a lot of Clay Travis retweets.
I am.
And then, I'm just messing around. Steve Forbes, hey, still waiting for Steve Forbes to make the NCAA tournament. I know you're a big Steve Forbes guy. Hey, first time he makes a tournament at Wake, that'll be great. I'm waiting for it to happen. Still hasn't happened yet, so people can love. I love Steve Forbes. I think he's electric for the ACC. I think he's great for Wake, but at some point you got to start winning, getting in the tournament. So I think they'll have a great team this year with Hunter Salas. Hopefully we'll see. I was looking at that roster. It looks good, but Hunter Salas is a star. But beyond that, I'm not sure there's a lot of proven parts. I like that British guy. All right, out of here real quick. You said you were taking App minus 17.5. I might take App 17.5. That's a good pick there. All right, Josh.
Plus,
surely
I'm not laying the points with that.
Are you taking Clemson?
No. App plus the points. You said minus.
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't think I'd lay the points with App State.
Yeah. I wrote that wrong there. Yeah, App plus 17.5. All right, Josh. Appreciate your time. Love the takes in the ACC. You are electric. I can see why they keep you around the radio. You got a lot of energy, a lot of electric takes, both on radio and on Twitter. Appreciate the time. Listen to Josh on the drive if you're in the Triad, or stream it if you're anywhere else in North Carolina. Appreciate it, Josh. All right, stay tuned to Dre Bly. Stay tuned to Dre Bly after this interview. And if you're watching this, please rate, review, subscribe, follow Spotify, YouTube, and Apple for the Big Hitters Only podcast. See you, Josh. All right, joining us now on the Big Hitters Only podcast is former UNC quarterback, former UNC cornerbacks coach, current defensive analyst for Charlotte, Dre Bly. Dre's on a walk. What's up, Dre?
What's up, Ross? How you doing, man?
Good, man. How's things in Charlotte?
It's good. I'm home with my son every day. I'm sleeping in my own bed for the first time, year round. First time in 5-6 years. So it's a good day, man. Anytime you get a chance to work with your son and mentor your son, there's no complaints for me.
So what is he doing there?
So Trey is like a GA here. He's in grad school, and he works with the DBs as well. So I'm with him, all the time. He prepares the meetings, for the DB coaches. He's doing all of that stuff, doing all the computer work. He's like an analyst in a sense. So in the NFL last year, he's doing what the analyst does, GAs and quality control. So he kind of does do the responsibility of those guys.
What is your role with Charlotte this year?
So when Biff hired me, kind of like a special assistant to him, kind of work with the DBs, work with Ty Greenwood, work with Justin Saunders, work with Hogan. So work with all the DBs. Donnie Balfour, was my guy from North Carolina. Coached him 2 years. Chris Conley, coached him. So, I got relationships, and you know that. So just having a chance to work with the guys, give them input. This is my 6th year of coaching, Ross. So I'm growing every year. I was with the Detroit Lions last year. We had a great run. Had a chance to work with some guys. And so having a chance to put my stamp on these guys here and just give them information, right? I was an information gatherer last year. And now it's my chance to pour information to the guys that I'm around right now.
Are you doing, I know you said you're kind of a consultant for Biff. Are you doing any recruiting consulting? I know you can't actually recruit, off campus, but Is that a big part of you? Because I mean, at UNC, you were one of the better recruiters, and especially bringing in the talent from Virginia.
Well, I do that with my eyes closed, and I mean, and I mean, that's just what I specialized in when I was at Carolina. That's what I would be able to specialize in wherever I am, and so. Yeah, so I kind of help with recruiting, but it's a different time now. With recruiting, obviously I recruit the best corners, DBs in the country, being in Carolina, in this region. So a lot of guys, or if I missed on a guy, like there'd be a good chance that I'd be able to follow back up with the guy, and
Hmm.
so that's a good spot for me to be in. And and so Biff, I love Biff Vision. He's been very successful in life. He wants to surround himself with smart guys that's good at what they do, and he's not threatened. So, and he wants to win in all meetings, and so it was a good opportunity for me to be here this year, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and kind of getting into the UNC Charlotte game, getting a little bit more to know about Charlotte here. Like, what is Biff's like working with him now for a couple months? Like, how is he leading this team? What is his style? What does he bring? Because he's kind of a unique character. You see him with the cutoff shirt, but what is he like behind the scenes that UNC fans and people in college football need to know about Biff Poggi and his path and what he's doing and trying to do at Charlotte? Year 3 now for
What?
him.
Yeah, say it again.
It's year 3 now for him, just to kind of let people know where he is in the build up here.
No, this is year two.
Year 2.
Yeah, last year
Oh,
was
you're
the
right. You're
first year.
right. You're right.
Yeah,
My
I
bad.
know I'm right. Yeah, yeah. So this year two. So and so nah, but Bill, what you see, what you get, right? He's a man that does everything he says he's going, say he's going to do. He's not going to give you a bunch of candy and tell you lies. In this profession, it happens. He's very loyal to the kid. In this day and age, Ross, and I told you this before, coaches can make a kid quit. And, I was able to witness it. I've seen it. Coach can treat you like trash and make you quit, which will make a kid go to the portal. And when I
Hmm.
came up 25 years ago, it just wasn't none of that. Kids, I tell people all the time, just because a kid don't turn out to be Dre Bly or Julius Peppers doesn't mean he doesn't have value. There's a lot of guys that I played with that never touched the field that helped me become the man that I was, that was a great student, that represents what it means to be a Tar Heel, that had a lot to do with us going 10 and 2 and 11 and 1 because they gave us the practice teams reps every day in practice, right? And they turned out being great CEOs and great, having their own business. But there are places for those guys on teams, right? I'm not saying, you have a lot of those guys, but there's places for those guys and guys help you win. Where in today's time, those guys get forced into the portal, right? Those guys, they treat those guys bad. They make those guys quit. Biff, in a sense, he has a soft heart. I think he gives guys a chance. There's other things to me than just football, right? And he's provided opportunity for my son. My son was in a position where he didn't have the best experience because he was undersized. And, he was a 3.0 GPA kid that's very intelligent, very smart. And Bill gave him opportunity to join the staff and did everything he said he was going to do. And so, to me, that's what it's about. That's what coaching is all about. I think you represent that, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. So how is he trying to build Charlotte? Like, I know you got great recruits in town there. You can recruit South Carolina, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, what's kind of the vision that you've seen to kind of build that program to where he wants it to be? Like, how do you navigate college football in this era, and what Biff's trying to do to build that program up?
First and foremost, I think he's going to bring in the right guys on his
Yeah.
staff. I think he understands how you can get players, right? Well, first you got to bring guys that can recruit, right? Have a relationship with these high school coaches. I got ties here in Charlotte. I got ties in Virginia. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna have a relationship. Um, and I think you bringing guys on staff that's very similar to what I represent. And so, for you to have change and for you to get results, you got to be able to, you got to be able to have guys that can recruit. And that's what we did when we came to Carolina. Mac hired a bunch of guys, big and, guys that can recruit, guys that got relationships. And so we was able to win over the state. And because we had these great relationships with these high schools. And so I think Biff is hiring guys that can get it done. He's going to continue to bring in those guys, right? And so therefore we're going to get results. And I think we're on our way. I think
Hmm.
we're going to instantly improve from what we were last year. We're getting the kind of guys that we want here. And I think that's what it's all about, man. You got to be able to recruit, man. You got to be, whether it's guys in the portal, whether it's guys in high school, but you got to be able to recruit. And that's what we were able to do in Carolina. We brought in instant players,
Yeah.
right? And we dominated the state. And it started with Sam Howell, which led to Josh, and which poured over to Drake and the rest of the guys that we got, and the guys from Virginia. And everybody didn't turn out to be a superstar, but it led to us getting the next guy, right? Which led to
Hmm.
us doing some good things at the University of North Carolina. And so that's what we're going to do here. And I'm excited to be a part of it, man, because I've been in Charlotte for 15 years now, man. So I understand the dynamic of this city. I understand the dynamic of the state. Um, and so no, it's pretty cool to be here, man.
What's it like working with Tim Brewster again?
Coach Brew, Coach Brew, man. Coach Brew got so much energy, man. He's a very confident individual. He was with Prime last year, so Brew is Brew, man. He's like family. He's like
Yeah.
family. I've been knowing Brew since I was 19 years old. He treats me like his, family, and that's the most important thing, man. Like, family is family, and so at the end of the day, I trust him. He trusts me, and so it's cool to. And even with Coach Cross, Coach Cross here, he's a great dude, man. Like, there's not many people out here that is as solid as Tim Cross, and so having a chance to be with him. And just some of the guys that's here. We got Corey Bell on staff here.
Uh huh.
So now we got some like-minded guys together. I think for success, it's important that you put together you have a bunch of like-minded guys working together.
All right. So what happened at UNC? 4 years there. Had the success with Sam and Drake, and then you went to Detroit. How would you kind of put into words you leaving Carolina for the NFL and what went down there? For you,
Going,
how you
man.
can put that into words? It's a hard hitter there,
Your
Dre.
word. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a subject that I don't really want to talk about because a lot of people don't really know, you know, everything that went down. Everybody tried to say, I ran the back end. All I did was coach the corners, right? That was the first 3 years. But the last year, I was just a recruiter, right? And a lot of people don't know that. So anything that went down in the back end, people thought it was Dre, right? Which is okay. I'm a big boy. I can take my medicine, but I needed to be in a place where I could spread my wings, and I wasn't
Yep.
able to spread my wings as like I wanted to, and because I was always working with somebody. Jay Bateman was the DC. He coached the safeties and ran the defense, and then when Charlton got there, Charlton coached the whole back end, right? And
Hmm.
Kens allowed him to do that, and so basically, all the stuff that I had taught my guys that last year at University of North Carolina, like they had to learn something new. So it was a tough bind to be in. And this other thing too with me having the success that I had as a player, um, you know, when players get into this coaching, uh, it's just one of the things that we got to deal with, right? Uh, you know, people are threatened by us, right? And I'm not saying that was the case at the University of North Carolina, but everybody think, like I learned how to play my position and do what I do from a guy named Coach Case, right? And so everything
Hmm.
that I learned was based on him. And then I had a chance to go do some internships in the NFL and learn from some smart guys in the NFL. So I was able to grow, what I knew about the position, right? And so, but I'm gonna tell you this right here: the best leaders, in my opinion, Ross,
Hmm.
are the guys that understand, right? And the guys that understand to me are guys that had at least played the game at some level, right? And so, like a guy like Dan Campbell, he's one of the best leaders I've been around, right? Uh, to him, he's not a big X and O guy, and he might be, right? I think he was a coordinator in Miami, but with Dan Campbell, the reason why the Lions had so much success and have been having success is because they believe in what Dan Campbell believes in. And so it's pretty cool to see him as a former player having the success that he's having. Some of the other former players is coaching, is having a success. And so I think now, going into my 6th year, I've learned tremendously, learned a lot, and I'm ready to do more, man. And so that was kind of like where I was. I'm grateful for the opportunity that Matt gave me. Grateful for the things that I experienced at Carolina. No love lost. Sure, we went to a Orange Bowl and went to an ACC championship and
Yeah.
recruited some of the best players that they've ever recruited, right? And so my nephew, I had a chance to coach my nephew, brought Carolina probably one of the best receivers ever and 2 quarterbacks ever. So I'm
Yeah.
pleased with what I was able to do there, right? And so it's time to go do some things somewhere else. And so that's kind of like what it is. I'm looking forward to coming in this Saturday. Like I love my school, but on Saturday, it's
Yeah.
I am. I'm very competitive. So
Yeah.
I want my guys to come in and play well, and I'm looking forward to it.
How's that going to be? What's it going to be like coming in there with a different color on? What's that going to be like for you emotionally? Are you going to just kind of block out the Carolina blue and do your job, or is it going to be a little
I got a job.
sentimental?
Nah, I got a job, man. Dude, listen, I was in Carolina every day for 4 years.
Yeah.
Played there. I was there for 4 years in school. I spent a lot of time in that stadium. So, just for me, it was like a normal day at the park, man. Strictly business. Dap up the people I need to dap up. Brian Simmons, one of my best friends. Big. But it's business, man. It's business. Strictly business.
All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this. You were known as a recruiter. Y'all recruited some dogs, some high-level talent at UNC. Give me a story. Give me something interesting about one of the recruitments you had a big part in at UNC. Any guy that you think you want to kind of tell fans about that now that you're gone and now that player is probably not even there anymore or could be still there, that's an interesting story about their recruitment.
No, a lot of people don't know the relationship with Sam Howell. Sam Howell, I coached him in high school. He's the same age as my oldest boy. He played on my baseball team for 2 years. The Carolina Stars, which is one of the top 707 organizations here in North Carolina right now, I started that with Boone back in 2015. So having the chance to watch Sam grow, I'm a Sam Howell fan, to watch him grow. People don't know this. He could have played pro baseball. At 15 years old, Ross, he was throwing 93 miles per hour on the radar gun down at Perfect Game in Atlanta, right? And he never practiced baseball. So just being able to see him grow, just to see how we built Carolina, right? Mac had a plan, and it worked to a T. But it started with Sam Howell. How all the chips fell in place. Sam Howell and Josh Down played together on my 707 team, right? How we was able to get Drake May to Myers Park to come play with our boys, right? And then how we was able to get Drake May to come from Myers Park, which I coached at as well with my sons, get him to come to the University of North Carolina. And then how, they connected the dots with the Virginia guys. And so how they was able to build, how we were able to build what we built. That was beautiful, man. And to see the success that the guys, to see Fig and his guys do well, and to still see some of the coaches I had a chance to work with do well and having fun, it's all cool, man.
All right. I always love when you come down Mondays and talk to the media. You always give us some crap. You'd always come and chirp us after the Mac Brown press conference. Always love that. Appreciate you. It's fun covering you. And looking forward to seeing you this Saturday in Chapel Hill with a different color on.
All right, Ross, I'm going to tell you this, Steve. You're the only one who was going to get an interview this week. I really didn't want to talk to a lot of people about this week, but because I've been knowing you for some years, and the first time I saw you, you kind of, I think I kind of bust your bubble a little bit, and I can't remember what it was, but ever since then, we've been cool and we've been good, and so I appreciate you, brother. Welcome back to North Carolina, and hopefully I'll see you this weekend.
Hey, we got the same path. We both went to Michigan for 1 year and came back to North Carolina. How about that?
We did, man. That's crazy, right? You got to stop following me, Ross.
I know. You came back good. All right, appreciate it, Dre. Good luck, man.
All right, bro. Thank you.
All right, see ya.